Hello, I'm Harrison Marshall, Chair of the Board of Directors of the Pines at Davidson. Thank you for joining me for this special tribute to Steve Jewell. We're grateful for his more than 5 years of service as the Pines Executive Director and CEO. Today, we reflect on Steve's leadership during this important and certainly historic chapter in the life of our community. With more than 27 years of management experience in the retirement community industry, Steve arrived at the Pines in July of 2015 from Park Point Village in Rock Hill, South Carolina. For 12 years prior to that, he had served as executive director of Kendall at Lexington in Virginia. Through the years, Steve focused on the well-being of all residents by supporting the work of the resident services, plant services, culinary, and nursing departments. And as the nursing home administrator, Steve was also mindful of the special needs of all residents in our Shram Health Center. Steve embraced the broader community too, meeting with local leaders of nonprofits, faith communities, and town officials to discuss shared interest and potential collaborative initiatives. Here, Steve is pictured with resident Sheila and Art Engelbart, Rabbi Michael Shields, and resident George Ramsey during a 2018 Seder service at the Pines. Steve was especially mindful of supporting the staff so that they could provide exceptional services to our residents. One staff member recently said, "I am grateful for the opportunity Steve gave me and for trusting me and my team during challenging times. I will miss his leadership and the green pen." Steve used a distinctive green color ink when editing memos. Here, Steve is pictured with former Director of Nursing Judy Green and our current Assistant Director of Nursing Angie Blackwell, along with David Rainey, Vice President and Chief Financial Officer. Steve inaugurated the Red Carpet Customer Service Program at the Pines. It's a comprehensive year-round employee training program aimed at enhancing the quality of service that residents experience. Pictured on the left is the first group of staff, leaders, and teachers of this program. Also, Steve presided over the Pines Customer Service Award Program, which was established in 2016 in honor of Reverend John Lyles. On the right, Steve is pictured with the first recipient of this award, Yvette Mood, a member of the Pines nursing staff. As many of you know, a prominent component of Steve's years at the Pines involved preparing for and later transforming our campus. First, he began by working with the board, revising the Pines strategic plan. In the months that followed, through current and future resident surveys, focus groups, and consultations with industry experts, he helped shape the construction plans for the Pines. Numerous presentations for residents about these plans followed, and in early 2019, the renovation and expansion of the campus began. Remarkably, the successful conclusion of this project is now on the near horizon, beginning with the recent completion just a few weeks ago of the new 2-story nursing wing. And in fact, residents began moving into the new nursing rooms on November 20th, after the new addition obtained all regulatory approvals. The transformation of the Pines involves so many facets of the Pines campus and activities. Fitness, new spaces for equipment and exercise classes. Dining, new venues such as a new pub, the Marketplace Cafe, and a coffee gelato cafe. A bigger Davidson room, and our new first floor multi-purpose room. Enhanced common areas in our assisted living neighborhood, and as noted already, the new 2-story nursing wing, which will provide a vastly better experience for our residents. This comprehensive construction requires, of course, changes in the landscaping of the Pines, which admittedly has been a difficult process for all in the community. Steve presided over the creation of a master landscaping plan designed by the Pines landscape architects. These changes, some already completed, include a new entrance and second road into the Pines, plans for a new courtyard garden, and many other enhancements to the Pines' beautiful grounds. An equally significant element of Steve's tenure involves guiding the community during the COVID-19 public health crisis. Under his supervision, the Pines continued to remain a safe and caring place for residents, with very few cases of COVID-19. We appreciate that early on, Steve instituted important safety protocols, and he continued to integrate the ever-evolving safety recommendations and requirements, especially those related to our licensed nursing and assisted living neighborhoods. Here, I would also like to commend Steve's wife, Beth, who coordinated volunteers who made cloth masks for our nursing staff. This was especially appreciated in the early days when the country was caught unprepared and did not have the adequate amount of PPE for our staff to safely care for residents. Steve has helped navigate the Pines through a difficult time, but he leaves it poised for a bright future. Despite the COVID-19 crisis, new residents continued to move to the Pines, including the 10 independent living households that we welcomed during the third quarter. The Department of Insurance granted approval for the opening of the 38 new Poplar Hill villas, subject only to obtaining the certificate of occupancy. 33 of the new 38 Poplar Hill villas were reserved, and the prospective residents will begin moving into the new villas beginning later this month on December 28th. Importantly, Fitch reaffirmed the Pines' BBB+ rating with a stable outlook, despite the construction and financial challenges of the pandemic. Steve ends his tenure with a Pines that is financially secure, modernized, and ready to meet the ever-evolving needs of senior adults for many years to come. Thank you, Steve, for your leadership, especially during these tumultuous times. We know you have always cared deeply about the well-being of every member of the Pines community, residents, and staff. We wish you all the best in your future adventures with Beth in Virginia. Finally, many of you may not know that Steve is also a nature photographer. Many of his photos were featured in the Pines publications. We thought you would enjoy seeing the following short video of some of these images captured by Steve. Steve, we thank you for sharing your talents with us in so many ways. The Pines will dedicate an outdoor bench in one of the newly landscaped areas in honor of Steve for his role in the expansion and enhancement of the Pines community and for his love of nature. Gifts are being made in Steve's honor for our chaplaincy fund. and the board is grateful for this support of an important resident initiative launched during Steve's tenure as CEO of Pines. And now I'd like to introduce a Pines resident, the Reverend Canon Phil Craig, who will say a few words on behalf of our Pines residents.
Thank you, Harrison. I've been asked as a resident to say a few words about our departing director. Nancy and I first met Steve when we visited the Pines just before we became residents. So we've been here almost 5 years, the same length of time. We had some questions about Medicare and other expenses, things we might encounter as members here. In his office, we had a good conversation. He told us that he was also new at the Pines and there was still much he was learning about the operations of the place. And what he was not able to answer, he said he would find out for us. And he did. So my first reflection is that Steve is a man of his word and a man who truly cares about the lives of those who live here. And that is a huge commitment. But as often happens, life does become more complicated. First came the consuming upheaval of the construction, an event which is never easy for those of us who prefer calm stability in our mature years. It reminds me a great deal. I found myself responding. I heard someone say one time that they hated buttermilk and they despised lard and they didn't care much for white flour, but when you mixed them together, he loved biscuits. So I think sometimes we just have to wait until the mixing is done before we see what we're looking at. What would complicate this, of course, is the pandemic. And in both of these disruptions, Steve and his staff have worked overtime to make sure that the needs were met as best they could. And we were kept safe as possible. And so we're grateful that we've had very few cases of any kind of COVID-19 in the campus. So I know these times are changing and circumstances change, and I want to be open to that reality. But I am sad at the loss of a friend, and I wish him every possible joy in the future. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Phil. And now, Steve Jewell, I welcome you to say a few words.
Thank you, Harrison. My heart is filled with gratitude today for so many people. And first, I want to thank Motria Prosic and David Rainey and all others who had a hand in creating the slideshows that so well capture the essence of my time at the Pines. I'll treasure these. Thank you. I want to thank you, Harrison, for supporting the effort to create this event, and who, in the interest of brevity and perhaps to spare my dignity, left out the lengthy review of my shortfallings of the past 64 months. God bless you, Harrison. And I want to thank you, Harrison, for your kind words that praised my work far beyond what I believe I deserved, knowing that what management achieves at the Pines is always a team effort, and that I simply could not have created a better team of senior managers, even if there were such a thing as a management fantasy league. And Phil, and your wonderful partner, Nancy, of course, I cannot thank you enough for the many words shared with me over the years, always thoughtful and kind, positive and uplifting. And your comments today will certainly be ones I return to repeatedly in coming years whenever I reflect on the incredible residents of the Pines at Davidson. You and Nancy and every resident here will forever be in my prayers of thanks, as well as prayers of request for peace and well-being. I was literally called to the Pines in 2015, taking a telephone call from the then recruiter, tasked with finding candidates for the Pines' next CEO. The Pines had an A rating from Fitch, a beautiful campus in a wonderful small college town, and a stellar reputation for sound management in the field of aging services. Plus, the board sought somebody to lead the transformation of the Pines in order to continue attracting residents with good values, looking for an environment that encourages fulfillment throughout their lives. There wasn't anything not to like, so I jumped at the opportunity to serve the Pines along that journey. Since then, I've done a lot of nothing, although I did my best to emulate the servant leadership model I witnessed through the life of my father, William M. Jewell III. His remains were honored by a color guard, then taken on a flag-draped horse-drawn caisson to his burial site at Arlington National Cemetery this past Monday, where taps was played from one hillside and a 21-gun salute was given from another. His Presbyterian pastor of many years, Tom Coy, spoke about my father being a warrior. And he was. He lived a West Pointer's code of duty, honor, country, serving during 2 wars and for over 2 decades as a soldier in the U.S. Army. Tom then spoke about the warrior mentality that provided the impetus for my father's post-military accomplishments, including leadership roles for good and righteous causes, like creating a free health clinic and a Y, and a recycling program in his adopted community in the northern neck of Eastern Virginia. What Tom described is what I learned about and understood to be servant leadership, vigorously devoting oneself with fierce determination and perseverance to honorably bringing about the most good for the benefit of others and not self. In this warrior mentality, this servant leadership model, it's a given that the only recognition or reward to be expected is that of knowing that you gave it your all, that you held nothing back, and fought a good fight, that you ran the race of your life. After my father's death in the fall of 2019, I reflected on his life, on the battles he'd fought, the races he'd run. While he was undoubtedly devoted to his God, his country, and his community, he was, more than anything else, devoted to our family. As we got deeper into 2020, I began to realize that going forward, my path of service was to be for my family, and that I needed to allow another leader to see the Pines through the final phases of physical transformation, as well as its evolving cultural transformation. My race here is done, and it has been an honor to serve the residents, the employees, and the board of the Pines at Davidson these past years. At some point, I may find another good and righteous cause outside of my family to which I'll commit myself. In the meantime, and for years to come, I will enjoy watching the Pines journey from afar, a path which I believe will include a heightened sense of community, greater unity and respect for diversity, and even higher levels of loving kindness shared among all whose lives touch the Pines. Harrison and all members of the board of directors, thank you again for the opportunity to lead the Pines during this time, and to everybody for your support and encouragement, and for your time today.
Thank you, Steve. I believe you had a good mentor and father all rolled into one, and you have fought the good fight and run the good race, particularly in these difficult and transformational times. So thank you. Thanks for all you've done. And thank you everyone who could join us in watching today. We wish the best to all of you for a safe and joyful start to this holiday season. Thank you.